Hello everybody, welcome back to Instant Release. I'm going to remove my glasses for the video. Today we're going to talk about the Fujifilm X-H1 and we're going to do kind of a long-term review of that camera, if that makes sense. This is a camera that I've used for about a year now. It's going to be a year in 2 weeks. But I'm selling that camera and I thought that, I'd just make a little video about my experience using that camera for a year. Now, before we get into the good, the bad, should you get it, that sort of stuff, I want to point out that I am not selling the X-H1 because the camera is not good enough anymore for me. The camera is more than good enough for me, okay? I have a new camera that I'm filming on right now, and the purchase decision of that camera is not tied to the X-H1 under-delivering, because that's absolutely not the case. The purchase decision of that new camera is purely for logistics. The new camera, which I'm gonna get into the process of reviewing soon, is the Nikon Z6, and the reason that I got the Nikon Z6 is because I also own this, which is the camera can focus on it. Maybe not. Okay, this is a Nikon D700. This is my favorite camera of all time. Like for ergonomics, build quality, image quality, feeling in the hand, whatever. This is my favorite camera of all time. I will never sell that camera, and I've been using it with Nikon lenses like this Nikon 35mm f2. Okay, this is the kind of lens that I'm never gonna sell, because this is not mine, this is my dad's, and he bought that lens about 40 years ago or something. So I'm not gonna sell the camera, I'm not gonna sell the lenses, but I'm using a totally different camera system, which means that I have cameras and lenses for that system, which, I can't really put on Nikon DSLR bodies. So I just decided to do a side grade. Alright, the Z6 is not an upgrade for most things compared to the X-H1, but I picked up a Z6 with, if I can remove the lens, with a FTZ adapter like this, and yeah, that way I have just one set of lenses. I only plan on getting two Z-mount lenses, one of which is the 28mm f2.8 I'm filming on right now, and the other being the 40mm f2, and those are the only two Z lenses I'm gonna get at all, I think. Alright, so this is the reason I'm selling the X-H1. I just want to, step into a more coherent camera system, and when it comes to Fujifilm cameras and lenses, I'm selling most of the things that I own. I'm selling the X-H1, I'm selling most of my lenses, I'm keeping a few. I'm keeping the X-T2 as a video backup, and a smaller camera with smaller lenses if I want to do, street photography, travel photography, and stuff like that, even though I think that the Z6 will generally be okay for that. But the main thing that I wanted was to reduce the number of lenses and cameras that I own. Of course, reducing the number of cameras by buying another camera is a strange concept, I get that, but the main objective right now was to really reduce the number of lenses. And if I'm not using the X-T2 as much as I thought I would, maybe that's on the table too. Maybe that's a camera that I would sell. I don't know. For the moment, still undecided, but that doesn't change the fact that this camera, for now, this camera is leaving, and it's not because of the performance of it, because the performance is actually more than I need, but let's get into that. So the X-H1, if you don't know, is a camera that was released in 2018 by Fujifilm, but it's a weird release from Fuji, because it's not a camera that has 2018 performance. What do I mean by that? Well, in 2018 there was other cameras that were released. There was the Sony A7 III, there was the Fujifilm X-T3, amongst others. Like I think the Panasonic S1 and S1R cameras were also released in that time frame. I don't remember. I'm getting this out of my ass right now. The Z6 was also released in 2018. The EOS R, that was a weird camera, but it was released also in 2018. And the X-H1 was coming at the very beginning of the year, and it was mostly based on the 2016 X-T2. which is, I'm not going to say it's a bad camera, because it's a very good camera, but it's a camera that is very much, you know, it's not the same generation of hardware and components and autofocus and stuff like that. So it has very good specs. It was really, really good, the XT2, when it was released in 2016. But in 2018, most of the other brands, when it comes to mirrorless cameras, like, had a huge step up, and Fujifilm was like left running behind them until the XT3 was released. And the X-H1 kind of inherited the XT2's innards when it comes to processor and sensor, so the autofocus is the same, the video performance is the same, but they added image stabilization, and of course it was a different body design with, you know, larger grip, bigger viewfinder, yada yada yada. Anyway, the thing that prompted me, you know, to get the X-H1 was really that thing. The ergonomics that were better compared to the XT2, but the ergonomics are not perfect on the X-H1, and I'm gonna get to that in a minute. When it comes to the performance of the camera, so what I call performance is mostly image quality and autofocus when it comes to photography. The performance of the X-H1 is, I would say, good. It's fine for it's fine for pretty much everybody, but it requires practice. It requires you to be, you know, to know your camera and to know what it can and can do. And the thing with the X-H1, it's that it's a bit foolproof. It's not foolproof. It's a bit foolproof. It's absolutely not. It's the opposite of foolproof. If you make a mistake, well, the camera won't correct it for you. If you aren't able to track a face or an eye in a crowd, the camera won't be able to do that for you. It's not like a Sony or Canon modern autofocus system where the camera pretty much knows the subject that you want to focus on and like sticks to that subject, and you know, it's very much a DSLR camera when it comes to autofocus. It's kind of not, but also kind of works like one. On a DSLR camera, you have your focus point in the center of the frame, right? Well, that's pretty much the same thing that happens on the X-H1. The X-H1 has focus points scattered all around the frame, but the phase detection points are only in the middle, meaning that if you get into those left and right side of the frame where it's only contrast detection, you will lose the autofocus performance that you are used to have with those cameras. And if there was like a subject being tracked, it will lose it. And that also happens in video. The X-H1 happens to have face detection in 4K video, things that the X-T2 doesn't do. This is one of the biggest differences between these two cameras when it comes to performance. And I mean, you've seen it in my videos when I moved away from the central position of the image. The autofocus just lost me because I stepped into the contrast detection and I was not in the phase detection points anymore, and the camera was just lost. So that's one of the biggest downsides of the X-H1, and by extension of the XT2 as well, because they share the same autofocus system. But those two cameras still are capable if you know what you're doing. If you know that you need to stay within those points, if you know what are the autofocus modes that you need to use, well, those cameras are going to be absolutely fine for you. And it was absolutely fine for me up until I upgraded to the Z6. The Z6, by the way, it's not like completely a super good upgrade from the X-H1. The biggest upgrade is really that we have phase detection all across the frame, and we have like a proper tracking box, and not like that weird thing that we have in the X-H1, which is really reminiscent of what you'd have in a 3D tracking autofocus system in a DSLR, for example. So, you know, it's different. It's not super better, and that's what I said. It was mostly a side grade. The Z6 is not like the best autofocuser in the world at all. At least we have like kind of accurate phase detection when it comes to video autofocus, which is nice. For those videos, it's just like a lifesaver generally. So I do not put out of the table the fact of going full minor focus though. You know. Anyway, the thing with the X-H1 is really that the autofocus system can be used correctly. I mean, with good results if you use it correctly. I've shot sports, I've shot air shows, I've shot bit of wildlife as well with the X-H1, and it was never that big of an issue because I knew the autofocus system well. Because before I got the X-H1, I had the X-T2 for more than a year, and I mean that means that I know what those cameras are capable of. So if you are getting in Fujifilm fresh, you don't really know what the autofocus is like and how it works, well, it might be a little difficult for you. And that's the biggest thing, I guess, of the X-H1 is that if you don't know what you're getting into, it could be frustrating. Another thing on the frustration part is going to go into the image quality. And there's two factors that I think were not only the X-H1, but also the X-T1, the X-T2, X-T3, every Fujifilm camera has that problem. It's not really a problem once you're aware of it, but it's kind of a sketchy thing that it's not in your face. It's not right. It's not like showing up right, like obvious. Okay, it's something that you need to look for, and when you see it, you say, oh, well, that's not great, isn't it? Okay, so those two things are, well, one thing is, I said it wasn't obvious, but it's all over the marketing of Fujifilm cameras, is the fact that they have an X-Trans system, an X-Trans color filter array on their sensors. And that means one thing. That means that not all raw editor software will be able to do the proper demosaicing, and there will be image artifacts, especially in Adobe Lightroom, for example, where there has been a warming issue. There have been, that has been a plague for Fujifilm photographers using Lightroom for years, up to the point that we needed to get, I don't know, like a 40 euros or dollars plugin that you need to install into your Adobe client, which is like it's kind of weird that you get a camera which is nice and all, and then you realize that you need to spend another piece of your hard-earned money to get something to make your camera work not better but work its best. And that's kind of a frustrating thing, because I was using Adobe Lightroom because it was practical and I like that piece of software, and because I use Fujifilm, I switched to Capture One. And now I do prefer Capture One over Adobe Lightroom, mostly because I don't like Adobe in the first place, but like the company. But the thing is, you need to know that you will have image quality compromises if you want to keep using Lightroom without any plugins. If you have an X-Trans sensor, you will have reduced sharpness, you will have warming artifacts if you push the sharpness of the image in the software, and it's not super great. If you are already a Capture One user, no problem. You probably already know about this issue, but it's something that is quite frustrating, I guess, for a lot of people. Some people will only say that the X-Trans cameras are the best and they are only one that are hard to be used. Some people will say that Bayer is superior. Honestly, I don't know. I never saw much of a difference between Bayer and X-Trans. In the same technology, just the color filter arrays, different disposition. It's not that big of a deal. But, it's just something to be aware of if you are getting into a Fujifilm camera. It might be the X-H1, might be the X-T2, X-T1, X-T3, whatever. The thing is that you will need something like Capture One to process your photos. And the second frustration when it comes to image quality is tied to the ISO standard. And this one is a bit shadier, I would say. A bit more shady in the way that it's not marketed anywhere. It's like public information. You can go see it if you want. But it's not something that Fujifilm really puts out with pride like they do with X-Trans. So that thing is tied to the ISO standard that they are using. If you are buying a camera off the shelf of any store today, if it's a Nikon, Canon, Sony camera, I think Panasonic also uses that ISO standard on their S cameras. I think Leica as well. I mean, pretty much all the major brands when it comes to photography are using a standard when it comes to ISO, which is called REI, which is Recommended Exposure Index. And that's the standard that pretty much everybody has been using for 20 plus years when it comes to digital cameras. I think that my Nikon D1X is already using that standard. Now, if you look at Fujifilm, what Fujifilm is using, I'm not aware of any other company that is using the same standards as Fujifilm, but I mean, there might be maybe some Micro Four Thirds cameras that were in that situation. Maybe honestly, I'm talking out of my ass right now. I just know that some of the Micro Four Thirds has had a base ISO of 200, which is the same thing as some Fujis. So that's why I'm saying this, and they had like crop and noise issues, so they might have wanted to, get their things sorted out like that. But the thing is, Fujifilm cameras are using SOS. SOS is a standard output sensitivity, so it's a completely different ISO system standard, I would say. And the difference between those two ISO standards is basically a stop. I don't know if it's exactly a stop, but that's what I've seen in my testing. So if you are putting an REI camera, right, next to an SOS camera, and you put the exact same settings on both of those cameras, like let's say 1/50th of a second and f4, if you want to have the exact same exposure on those two cameras, it's regardless of sensor size here. If you want to have the same exact exposure on both of those cameras, you will have to get an ISO that is about one stop higher on the Fujifilm camera compared to the any other brand camera that you have next to it. So if I want to compare like my Nikon with my Fuji, if I want to take a picture at ISO 200, well, my Nikon will match the exposure at the exact same settings on my Fuji at ISO 100. And that means that you do not have, if you want to have like apples to apples comparison with other cameras, you can't say that the X-H1 has an ISO range of 200 to 12,800, because that's not true. If you are using the X-H1 saying that it has the same ISO standard as the others, meaning that it's using REI, well, in using REI, the X-H1 will have an ISO range of about 100 to about 6400 when it comes to ISO sensitivity. And that's something that I've been able to see in pictures, and I was doing low light photography, and I was like pushing up to 12,800 on the X-H1, and I was like, oh, okay, I still need to have like 1/30th of a second at f1.4. That's pretty dark. And I did the same thing with my D700, which is using REI, and at 12,800, I was like, damn, I can go 1/60th here. So damn, why is that? And I at first I was thinking that it was because the D700 had a full frame sensor, but that goes in complete opposition to what I know about optics and sensors, where it's a matter of density, not intensity, and meaning that the exposure itself shouldn't matter based on your sensor size. So it was like confusing. I did a bit of research, I found it, and yeah, it was kind of a bit of a disappointment that Fujifilm is not telling their customers that this is what they're doing. So that's one frustration I have with the X-H1, but in reality, like realistically, that's just a mental construction I have about it, because the X-H1's low light performance never stopped me from getting low light shots. Because there is IBIS, because I can push the files, there is nice dynamic range of an ISO, you name it. The image quality of the X-H1 is not hurt by that different ISO standard. It's just something that you need to keep in the back of your head, that ISO 2800 is more like ISO 6400 in reality. But, that's one thing. It's minor details, right? When it comes to the performance, if I need to, finish on that, when it comes to the performance, the X-H1 doesn't limit me in any way. And that's the same conclusion I have on the X-H1 today as I had on the X-T2 a year ago when I made the X-T2 after 1 year thing. Well, the X-T2 doesn't limit me in any way. The X-T2, besides the ergonomics and lack of IBIS, of course, when it comes to image quality, video quality, autofocus, I can get around all the small limitations that these cameras have, and, well, it's not a problem anymore. It never was really a problem the moment that I was comfortable using the X-T2 for everything. So transitioning to the X-H1 wasn't much of an issue, and it's just was a matter of adapting to the extended capabilities than the IBIS was giving me. And that's it. That's really it. If I could continue to use that camera for like 5 more years, I probably could have. Anyway, so that was like the performance aspect of the camera. Let's now switch to the ergonomics, and I have absolutely no idea for how long I've been talking about this, so I'm just gonna cut the camera and start another clip. Right? So let's now talk about ergonomics. The ergonomics of the X-H1 are weird. On the X-T2 you don't have a grip, and that's a grounded, you know that the camera is not made to be ergonomic. But on the X-H1, you really feel like they tried to do something nice. You really see that the grip is correctly shaped, it's correctly sized, it's in the right position, but there is a ton of other details that they didn't nail correctly. Were they like big drawbacks of the X-H1? I wouldn't say they were. Like, they were minor nitpicks that I had, but they were still there. And there were things that were not in the back of my head when I was using the D700 or even the Z6 right now. So let's talk about those little details. The first thing that I want to point out is that the front and back command dial are not correctly placed compared to where my thumb and my index is on the camera. And I'm going to talk about the joystick in the back as well in a minute, but basically the problem that I have with the front back command dials and the joystick on that camera is that it really feels like Fujifilm tried to, make a camera that would be a little more ergonomic, but they didn't really know how to do that. And so they tried things, they tried stuff, but it didn't go the right way, in my opinion. So if we take a look, that is going to be B-roll, I'm not going to show you. But if you take a look at the front dial, it's too low. It's much lower than it should be. If you take a look on the D700, for example, the D700 dial is right beneath the shutter button where your index, lies on the camera. Meaning that if you want to turn it, you just have to move your index and you don't have to break your grip. You don't have to move your fingers downwards. Now, similarly, in the back here, the dial should be up here pretty much, a bit higher. This is too low, meaning that if I want to use it like that, I need to break my grip again to use it. And the same thing happens on the joystick here, because the joystick does have a smooth top, so I can't really use it with the back of my thing right now. I need to use it like this, and that means breaking my grip again. But the X-H1 has some like small nitpick details which like annoy you the more that you use the camera. If I compare that to the D700, well, I have my earphone button, I have my thing here. There is no joystick, but on the Z6, the joystick has like a rugged top part of the joystick, so I can use it with the base of my thumb, like that pretty much, and that's good. That's okay. Where my fingers are staying here, right? If I hide behind the camera, you can see. I don't have to move my fingers to activate the front dial, right? I can do it, and I don't have to break my grip. And on the X-H1, I had to break my grip. So maybe that's because I have too large of hands. I have pretty big palms, but I don't think that, like, I have seen on forums and videos complaints about the X-H1 being too large for smaller hands. I have larger hands, and I said to myself, okay, well, I have a larger camera for larger hands, good. But with my large fingers, I need to break my grip constantly when I'm using that camera, meaning that it's not made for small hands, and it's not made for large hands. So you need to have hands that are exactly middle-sized. Is it good? I mean, come on. So those are the two main compromises when it comes to the ergonomics of the X-H1. The front dial, you need to move your fingers, complaint vastly goes away when you add the vertical grip, because you have more space for your fingers to go, and you can have your hand lower, and I'm not hurt by the pinky hanging off problem that I had before. So that's a whole different subject of talking about the X-H1 with its grip. Grip that you need to buy if you want to have the full performance of the camera and if you want to record for 30 minutes, which was annoying. Yes, there is like a DC input adapter if you have the power supply. Power supply that I'm keeping, by the way, because I have the X-T2 grip and I'm going to continue using the X-T2 for, you know, videos and stuff like that. So having like a camera that is wall powered is always nice. I can do that on the Z6, that's a bit of a shame. I think I can on the Z6 too, but I didn't want to spend the money for the Z6 too. Anyway, the thing with the X-H1 is that like, you know that it tried. They tried to do something nice. But it was like a first generation product, if I can call it that, in the way that it looks very good, but it's not polished to the same level as the other cameras. Like when you hold the Z6, for example, you know that that Nikon had like 20 years of development and refinement of the designs. They know where they need to put the dials, they know where they need to put the buttons, they know how they need to shape the joystick, because otherwise people will complain. And well, that did not. That's something that people did with the X-H1. They complained about it, and I'm complaining about it again. So, you know, that's something. The absolute, you know, entirety of the rest of the ergonomics are fine. The viewfinder, very good. The back screen, very good as well. Very good screen. With SATA articulation, that's a feature that I'm going to miss. Believe it or not, this is like the main thing with the X-H1. I love that feature. I'm still having it on the X-T2, but it's not my main camera anymore. So, you know, I would love if I had that on the Z6. If the Z6 had the Z8 screen design, it would have been the dream camera. But yeah, another thing that I'm gonna miss is this. Dual SD slots. The camera can focus here. Yeah, dual SD slots. My Z6 has one CF Express Type B slot, but that means that if I want to, like, one of the biggest advantages of the X-H1 was that I could, I'd say that, I could use the camera for my personal work and still benefit from it, in a way that I could have RAW files on one card and JPEGs on the other, and it was like a breeze to sort out the files on my computer later. And if I was shooting a gig or something a bit more serious, I could do RAW files or RAW plus JPEGs on both cards, and that way I would have everything. But yeah, that's something I can't really do on the Z6 anymore, but at the same time, the Z6 is using CF Express Type B, which is a more reliable, I feel like, storage format, so it's not that big of a problem. Now, I guess it's time to talk about the conclusion. I'm doing that video kind of in a hurry right now, but the X-H1 currently on MPB Europe, if you are in Europe, is exceptionally cheap. I don't know why that's happening, but like once a year, the X-H1 are getting super cheap. When I got my X-H1 early this year, it got almost as cheap as today. It was still a bit more expensive. It was like 530 to 604 euros when it comes to the prices. Today it's like 480 to 530. It's a whole price bracket lower than it was a year ago, and in the time between that, it went back to 800 or something like that, some crazy price that nobody should pay. But right now it's super affordable. You get a warranty with it. You don't have like scammers and stuff like this. It's a reputable website. If you are looking for an X-H1 or were on the verge of getting an X-H1, I can guarantee you this camera is a workhorse. The autofocus works well if you take the time to learn it. The image quality is absolutely okay as long as you have the software to use the RAW files properly. And if you are not bothered by the little thing that I was bothered about when it comes to the ergonomics, it's a camera that will fit you very well generally. It's a bit large for an APS-C camera, granted, but you have good lenses to go on there. You have the image quality to go with it, and that's not much of a problem in my opinion. It's not that much bigger than the X-T2 in the end. It's just like an X-T2 with a grip and a few millimeters here and there. But it's still a camera that is not like D700 sized. Okay, it's not like a monster 1 kilogram camera that you're gonna lug with you. But the thing is that for the prices going on right now, it's an exceptional deal. It's an exceptional camera, and I would encourage everyone that has the money and wants to have like a professional, rugged camera with short catch slot, good autofocus, good burst rate, good, decent video quality. I didn't talk about the video, but the video was good when it comes to quality. The autofocus was not great, and I had to do my autofocus in the end, but the IBIS worked okay. The video quality in 4K was very good, and there is internal log profiles, thing that my Z6 doesn't do. I have to hack my way to have like kind of internal log, but it's still 8-bit and it's not exceptional. This is 8-bit log, okay, but it's very good footage, and I've always been amazed of how much the X-T2 and the X-H1 hold up when it comes to video quality. Even like all those years after this, they've been released. You could shoot a movie with those cameras if you are using manual focus, and it would not be shocking to see that on a big screen, in my opinion. So the thing I want to say about the X-H1 is that it's an exceptional value. However, the price on MPB will rise up again. I'm guaranteeing, it's almost guaranteed that it will rise up again at one point. They will go up to 750 or something like that. Don't buy an X-H1 for 750, okay? I'd say that a very good price for an X-H1 right now would be around 500, a bit lower, a bit over, give or take 50 bucks, but around 500 bucks, 500 euros would be a nice price for that, for like such a camera. If you're on a budget and want a rugged camera, that's basically the best option that you have right now. Otherwise, that you are getting into DSLR territory, and you can't even get a D750 for that kind of money, which is I feel like it's the worst camera for the money. The D750, you don't have more resolution, you have better low light performance, but you have much lower video quality, and yeah, not all of your card slots are UHS2. It's a good camera, but I don't think it is the same amount of value as you're getting with the Z6. Okay. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Yeah, one thing that made me buy the Z6, relative to the X-H1 and stuff, is I wanted to use my f-mount lenses on my Fujifilm cameras. I had high hopes in the Fringer NF-FX adapter. That thing cost a lot, by the way. But the autofocus really let me down on that thing. I wanted to shoot an air show with my Sigma 100 to 400, and yeah, I had to do the whole thing manual focus because the camera couldn't, for the life of it, find focus in that situation. It was like a plane with a white sky behind it. It was not like a super complicated autofocus situation, but yet here we are. It was mostly the fault of the adapter, though. When I put the Fujifilm lens on it, it was working fine, but it's something more that pushing me towards Nikon again. Alright, so I guess I've said everything I wanted to say about the X-H1, all the little things that annoyed me, and all the little things that are good, things that are bad, things that are meh. Alright, so I'm selling that camera. That doesn't mean it's bad. Okay, I'm selling it because, well, I have a Z6 now, but it's a very good camera. I feel like I've said that like 7 times in this video, because I want people to buy the X-H1 and stuff like that. It's not because I love, or I'm a Fujifilm fanboy or anything like that. I'm not a Fujifilm fanboy, otherwise I wouldn't go back to Nikon. But the thing with the X-H1 is that it's such a complete package, and it's such at a low price right now, that I almost feel bad selling it, but it's something that that you can't find in other cameras at this price point. If we are talking about mirrorless cameras, the amount of value you get for the money is unmatched. I would say maybe matched by things like the A6300 or something like that, which are even lower in price, even though it's not that far away. Like if there is like $100 difference between an A6300 and an X-H1, I think it's a no-brainer to just go straight for the X-H1. Okay, that means if you are okay paying the prices for Fuji lenses. I didn't talk about Fuji lenses that much, but I I guess that's a given when we are talking about Fujifilm cameras. You will have expensive lenses or you will need to go third party. There is no way around it. Fujifilm lenses are awesome and are very good, but they are also expensive for the most part. The only affordable good lens of the Fuji lineup, I think, is the XC35 f2. For $200 you get exceptional image quality out of this, but all the other lenses, even the Fujicrons, I think they are good, but they are expensive, man. I'm not letting like $500 go on such a lens. But anyway, I hope that this video didn't sound too harsh towards that camera. I may be expecting a little more from it, that's why I may sound a little more critical. But don't get me wrong, the X-H1 is a wonderful piece of kit if you put the time to know it inside out. The value it brings, the lenses it has access to, the image quality it's able to get out, all of those things are worthy of the Pro Body title. Now my time with the X-H1 has ended, but that doesn't make the camera less worthy. It's still one of the best bang for buck that you can get nowadays if you're in need of pro features. Or not, it's a wonderful camera either way. Thanks for watching.